Hello, you're listening to Storytelling Saga, the podcast that shares stories. I'm your host, Allie, and this week I'm discussing A Charlie Brown Christmas. And this special is a classic. It's the first original animated Peanuts special. It debuted back in 1965, so over 50 years ago at this point. And the irony about it, though, is that there was thoughts from the producers and from the network that this special was going to fail. And that's because a lot of the things this animated special did essentially broke the mold of other animated projects at the time. There wasn't a laugh track, for instance, and that was really a staple for animated sitcoms back in the 60s. And the other thing about it was that it featured, of course, the beautiful compositions from the incomparable Vince Guaraldi. The jazz music and all of the songs he plays on the piano. Also, a big thing was that they used actual child actors instead of adults to voice the kids, which is kind of unheard of. And the other ironic thing about this special was that it was in fact commissioned and sponsored by the Coca-Cola Company. So really the irony of it, where they're pushing against commercialism, that's the message of this special, anti-commercialism for Christmas, but it was sponsored by Coca-Cola. And in fact, in the original special, it has long since been cut, but at the beginning when the kids are ice skating and the part where Linus and Charlie Brown get caught in Linus's blanket and Snoopy is dragging them around and then Charlie Brown crashes into the tree. Before that, there was a part where Linus crashed into the ice and there was a sign, a billboard that said, "Brought to you by the people in your town who bottle Coca-Cola." So, going against commercialism, and yet there was that message. That blatant ad, really. So we do have Coca-Cola to thank for giving Peanuts their chance to have this animated special, because of course it's based on the comic strip by Charles Schulz. But this was the first of many animated specials for Peanuts. And it's absolutely iconic. So of course it opens with Charlie Brown talking about the fact that he's depressed. He's sitting by the brick wall with Linus, and he says, "I think there must be something wrong with me, Linus. Christmas is coming, but I'm not happy. I don't feel the way I'm supposed to feel. I just don't understand Christmas, I guess. I like getting presents and sending Christmas cards and decorating trees and all that, but I'm still not happy. I always end up feeling depressed." And Linus just says, "Charlie Brown, you're the only person I know who can take a wonderful season like Christmas and turn it into a problem. Maybe Lucy's right. Of all the Charlie Browns in the world, you're the Charlie Browniest." So I guess that means of all the unhappy kids, he's the unhappiest one he knows. Poor Charlie Brown. But then Charlie Brown's looking in the mailbox, trying to see if he got a Christmas card, and he just says, "Rats," his disappointment. And he says, "I almost wish there weren't a holiday season. I know nobody likes me. Why do we have to have a holiday season to emphasize it?" Charlie Brown feeling so down on himself. But then the kids are just having fun, playing in the snow, and then they're eating snowflakes, but then Lucy, snooty Lucy, saying, "I never eat December snowflakes. I always wait until January." And then they're trying to knock a can off the fence with snowballs, and then Lucy making fun of Linus with his blanket, even though he used his blanket to whip the snowball and knock it off. And then she says, "You think you're so smart with that blanket. What are you going to do with it when you grow up?" Linus, always with an answer, he says, "Maybe I'll turn it into a sport coat." And honestly, I think that's believable for Linus. I genuinely think when he gets older, he's going to just have that blanket at the foot of his bed or something. He'll still sleep with it maybe. If he ever has kids, I don't think he'd even pass it down to his kids. He would just keep it for himself. That blanket is with him for the rest of his life. It's a part of him, that blanket. It really is. But then Lucy sees that she has a customer waiting for her at her infamous psychiatric stand. And she asks Charlie Brown, "May I help you?" And he says, "I'm in sad shape." But then she says, "Wait a minute," and she wants him to pay up front. He's got to pay his nickel. So he pays his nickel, and she says, "How I love to hear that old money plink, that beautiful sound of cold, hard cash, that beautiful, beautiful sound. Nickels, nickels, nickels." I mean, we get it, Lucy. You got paid. Good for you. But it's kind of like she's rubbing it in Charlie Brown's face. But then he explains how he's unhappy. He's not feeling the Christmas spirit, any joy at all this season. And then she tries to diagnose him, saying, maybe you have this sort of phobia, or maybe this, maybe that. Maybe you're afraid of cats, or are you afraid of stairs? And it's kind of impressive how she knows all these different phobias. She's just listing them off like she's this encyclopedic knowledge of hers. If she wasn't so bossy and vain, and maybe she could be a good psychiatrist someday, who knows. But then at one point she says, "Do you think you have pantophobia?" And Charlie Brown says, "What's pantophobia?" And she says, "The fear of everything." And he shouts, "That's it!" And then he says, "Actually, it's about Christmas." And so she says he needs some involvement. He should direct the Christmas play. And he's kind of in disbelief, saying, "You want me to direct it?" But then he agrees. And then as they're talking, we just see Snoopy walk by. And then she's saying, Lucy says, I understand you getting depressed. It happens to me every year. All I get are stupid toys or a bike or clothes. Never what she really wants. So then Charlie Brown says, "What is it you want?" She says, "Real estate." Lucy's too smart for her own good. She's probably going to grow up to be some really successful businesswoman, just take everyone down and run the world somehow. But then Charlie Brown follows back Snoopy, and he sees that Snoopy's trying to win a contest. And he reads a flyer saying, "Find the true meaning of Christmas. Win money, money, money. Spectacular, super colossal neighborhood Christmas lights and display contest." And he's bummed out by this, saying, "My own dog gone commercial. I can't stand it." So he feels everyone around him has this supposed Christmas spirit, but he doesn't want to be involved in the commercialism and the flashiness and the gaudiness and everything like that. But then we see Sally, Charlie Brown's little sister, and she asks Charlie Brown to help her write a letter to Santa Claus. She says, "You write it, I'll tell you what I want to say." He says, "Okay, shoot." So Sally says, "Dear Santa Claus, how have you been? Did you have a nice summer? How is your wife? I've been extra good this year, so I have a long list of presents that I want." Charlie Brown just says, "Oh, brother." And Sally says, "Please note the size and color of each item and send as many as possible. If it seems too complicated, make it easy on yourself. Just send money. How about 10s and 20s? And Charlie Brown says, "10s and 20s? Oh, even my baby sister." I mean, good on her for knowing what she wants, and she'll even just take straight up cash. She's funny, Sally. But then we see the kids on stage, and it is that absolutely iconic scene, the iconic Charlie Brown dancing, and all the characters are doing their own unique dancing, and I just love this so much. It just brings so much joy to me. I can't explain why. It's maybe just because of the endless loop of the same dancing for each kid doing their own individual silly little dance. I just absolutely love it. But of course there's those two girls that look exactly alike, so I guess they're twin sisters. They're dancing back and forth, side to side. There's, of course, what I call the zombie kid in green. He's basically walking in place, and his hands are out in front of him dancing. So that's his beautiful dance. And then, of course, there's Linus dancing, holding his blanket. There's that girl Violet dancing. And then, of course, Schroeder is playing the piano as they're all dancing. There's also Snoopy with the guitar. But then my favorite dance move is the kid in orange, and he's just doing that shoulder move back and forth. That move is amazing. I absolutely love it. I don't know. It's just so funny to me. It's brilliant. But then Lucy giving Charlie Brown this big introduction. She says, "Attention everyone, here's our director," and they break into applause. But then, of course, we just hear howling from Snoopy, his way of booing. Well, he's booing, really, and then Charlie Brown just says, "Man's best friend." Snoopy really is a rascal, that mischievous little beagle that he is. But Charlie Brown basically trying to have some authority, be organized, and he's giving everyone shorthand. He's explaining different gestures, saying, "I'll keep my directions simple and get right to it. This means to cut the scene short. This means stage right," and he's saying all that. But then, of course, they're not even paying attention. Then they're just dancing again, and this time Schroeder is playing the classic Linus and Lucy song. Love that song by Vince Guaraldi. It's an amazing jazz song for the piano. But then Charlie Brown's getting fed up, saying, "Stop the music." And then they're dancing for a couple seconds before they finally do stop. I like that little attention to detail. But then he asks Lucy to hand out scripts and costumes, and Lucy is telling everyone their parts, and then she says to Snoopy that he needs to be all the animals. Can he be a sheep? How about a cow? How about a penguin? And she's saying, "Oh, he's even a good penguin." And then she's saying, "Listen, all of you, you've got to take direction. You've got to have discipline. You've got to have respect for your director." So that's nice. She's sort of sticking up for Charlie Brown, but really she's just still being bossy and everything too. She's still kind of, even though she said Charlie Brown could be the director, she's still basically telling everyone what to do. But then as she's saying all of that, Snoopy's just standing next to her, copying her, making fun of her with all the gestures. And then she says to him, "I ought to slug you." And then he licks her face, and she just is all in disgust, running around saying, "I've been kissed by a dog. I have dog germs. Get hot water. Get some disinfectant. Get some iodine." And you hear Snoopy's his little noise that he makes. I like that Snoopy doesn't talk, but he does communicate well, and he has his little noises here and there. So then Lucy says to Linus that he has to get rid of his stupid blanket and that he needs to memorize all these lines. And Linus says, "This is ridiculous. I can't memorize something like this so quickly. Why should I be put through such agony? Give me one good reason why I should memorize this." And Lucy says, "I'll give you 5 good reasons. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And she makes her hand into a fist. And then Linus just says, "Those are good reasons." But then Charlie Brown basically still trying to maintain some sort of authority as director. He says to Linus that Sally's going to be his wife, and then Sally, of course, with little hearts over her head, saying, "Isn't he the cutest?" And then he just gets embarrassed and puts the blanket over his head, and she says, "He has the nicest sense of humor," and they walk off. And then Lucy's still basically telling everyone what to do. She just says, lunch break," and Charlie Brown saying, "Lunch break." And then Lucy asks him, "What about the Christmas Queen? Are you going to let all this beauty go to waste?" And Charlie Brown doesn't say anything, and she says, "You do think I'm beautiful, don't you, Charlie Brown?" And he doesn't respond, and then she just goes off, saying, "You didn't answer me right away. You had to think about it first, didn't you? If you really had thought I was beautiful, you would have spoken right up. I know when I've been insulted. And she walks away. I mean, it doesn't take much to get Lucy all riled up and so angry. She's just like looking for a reason to be angry and always wanting to be the center of attention, of course. But Charlie Brown just says, good grief. That's, of course, a classic Charlie Brown quote. But then he says, all right, let's take it from the top again. Places, action, and then the song Linus and Lucy playing, the kids just dancing again, not having listened to a word, of course, to Charlie Brown, or Lucy for that matter. But then Lucy's just snapping her fingers saying, Charlie Brown, isn't it a great play? And Charlie Brown gets fed up. And then he's saying it's all wrong. And then this is a weird line to me because Lucy says, look, Charlie, let's face it. And that's just so weird saying Charlie. No, I don't like that. It's always Charlie Brown, never just the first name. And really that's the only character I could think of off the top of my head at least where he's always referred to by his first and last name. Because he's Charlie Brown, that's it. Not Charlie, Charlie Brown, always. So that's just weird anyway. But she says, we all know that Christmas is a big commercial racket. It's run by a big Eastern syndicate, you know. And Charlie Brown doesn't want it to be commercial. And that they need the proper mood. They need a Christmas tree. And Lucy says, yeah, a big, shiny aluminum Christmas tree. So, of course, she's already missing the point still. Wants something big and flashy and gaudy. Representing all the commercialism that Charlie Brown is very much against. But he decides, okay, I'll get a Christmas tree. I'll take Linus with me. And I absolutely love this scene. One of the best scenes in this special when they're shopping for a Christmas tree. They see all the metal, huge trees. And then it pans over and we just see, of course, that tiny little wooden tree. Really the only one that's alive because all the other ones are made of metal. But this is the only little living tree. Very small. And Linus says, do they still make wooden Christmas trees? And Charlie Brown says, this little green one here seems to need a home. And it's so sweet that Charlie Brown sees beauty in this little tree, even though it's falling apart. When he picks it up, the needles fall off. You just hear the little tinkling bells. And Linus is hesitant, saying, I don't know, Charlie Brown. Remember what Lucy said? This doesn't seem to fit the modern spirit. But Charlie Brown is adamant. He's saying, I don't care. We'll decorate it and it'll be just right for our play. Besides, I think it needs me. And then that's when he picks it up and the little bristles fall. And it's so adorable. It does need him. It just needs a little love and nurturing. And then, of course, there's a scene with Schroeder playing the beautiful classic piece by Beethoven for release. That's an amazing classical piece. One of the best classical compositions to play on the piano. And then Lucy getting all annoyed, saying, what kind of Christmas music is that? And he says, Beethoven Christmas music. And Lucy isn't impressed at all by Beethoven, saying, what made him so great? He never got his picture on bubblegum cards, did he? Have you ever seen his picture on a bubblegum card? So, I mean, she measures her success by that, I guess. He's not worth her time if he wasn't on a bubblegum card. Beethoven isn't great enough for Lucy. As he's playing, though, then Snoopy comes up and he starts dancing, and it's so cute, but then Schroeder stops and he's glaring at him, and Lucy's glaring, and then Snoopy gets all embarrassed and he crawls away. And poor little Snoopy, he doesn't have to be embarrassed. It's cute that he was dancing and enjoying the music. But then Lucy asks if he knows Jingle Bells, and she's saying, no, I mean Jingle Bells. And then he just gets increasingly annoying, and then he's just playing one note at a time, and she says, that's it. And then Charlie Brown comes back with the tree, and he puts it down, and more of the little bristles fall off. You hear that little jingling noise again. And then the kids are just so relentless in how angry they are at him. They're being so mean, just berating him, saying, you're hopeless, Charlie Brown, you're stupid. How could you have gotten such a bad tree? And he just says, rats. I mean, they're being really mean to Charlie Brown. It's an adorable, sweet little tree. And they're all laughing at him. It's really the big downer moment for Charlie Brown. He's feeling so sorry for himself. And he's saying, I guess you were right, Linus. I shouldn't have picked this little tree. Everything I do turns into a disaster. I guess I really don't know what Christmas is all about. Isn't there anyone who knows what Christmas is all about? And Linus says, sure, Charlie Brown, I can tell you what Christmas is all about. Lights, please? And this, of course, is the iconic moment of the whole special. And I'm not going to recite the speech. I can't do it justice the way Linus does. But, of course, you know it. And this, too, was the big hesitation because it's obviously the religious message, Linus's speech about the true meaning of Christmas. They weren't sure how this was going to go over with audiences. But look at it now. 50 years later, this special is so beloved. But it's so sweet. Linus, the voice of reason, ever the voice of reason, telling Charlie Brown the true meaning of Christmas. And so then this really boosts Charlie Brown's spirit. He takes the tree with him, and there's that lovely moment where he's staring up at the sky with the twinkling stars, and he's reflecting on what Linus had just said. And Charlie Brown says, Linus is right. I won't let all this commercialism ruin my Christmas. I'll take this little tree home and decorate it. And I'll show them it really will work in our play. But then he gets discouraged when he sees that Snoopy won first prize in that light display contest, that Christmas decorating contest. But he says, oh well, this commercial dog is not going to ruin my Christmas. And he takes one of the ornaments off the tree, a red ornament, he puts it on, and it just falls forward, the poor little tree. And then Charlie Brown just says, I've killed it. Oh, everything I touch gets ruined. And so Charlie Brown walks off. And Charlie Brown, as much as he was berated and mocked by the kids, a lot of his misfortune too really comes from his own perspective and him feeling sorry for himself. So his attitude towards it as well, that he feels like this loser and that there's no hope anymore. And so he walks away, and then that's when all the kids come up, and then Linus says, I never thought it was such a bad little tree. It's not bad at all, really. Maybe it just needs a little love. And that's absolutely true. And he starts by wrapping his nice warm blanket around the tree. And then the kids all take down Snoopy's decorations and they put them on the tree to make it all beautiful. And then Lucy says, Charlie Brown is a blockhead, but he did get a nice tree. And then they're all together and they start humming Hark the Herald Angels Sing. And Charlie Brown comes back and he's saying, what's going on here? And then he sees the tree, now all beautifully decorated. And it's happy and joyous, and all the kids just shout, Merry Christmas, Charlie Brown! And they start singing Hark the Herald Angels Sing. And it's heartwarming and it's beautiful, and this is honestly one of the greatest animated Christmas specials there is. It's iconic, and I know I've used that word a lot, but I truly feel that way. I just have the utmost respect for Peanuts and its place in animation and the influence it's had. It's an absolute classic, and to me, it'll never get old. And with that, that's going to conclude this week's episode of Storytelling Saga. You can follow the podcast on Facebook and Instagram at Storytelling Saga, as well as on Twitter at Storytell Saga. You can also send me any questions, comments, or writing prompts by leaving me a message in the contact section of storytellingsaga.com or by sending me an email at storytellingsaga@gmail.com. Next week, God bless us, everyone. I'll be discussing A Christmas Carol. Until then, thank you for listening, and remember, write what you love.